You remember the world is flat, the globalized world in the 21st century. I believe it's a very common quotation, but I'll still do it because it sets the stage, in my view, of the sort of challenges that we have in Africa, certainly in Kenya. The world is flat. The flattening of the world means that we are now connecting all the knowledge centers of the planet together into a single global network, which could usher in an amazing era of prosperity, innovation, collaboration by all those people. The recognition, and this is the most interesting part, that the world was flat was unnerving, because I realized that this flattening had taken or had been taking place while I was sleeping, and I missed it. Those are the hard facts, and the argument is Africa, the developing world, and certainly in my Kenya, we cannot afford to be caught napping, let alone sleeping in the new world. The outline is shown there. I was to start with that graphic reality of the situation of our science, of our ICT technology in Africa, but I'm happy most of that has already been done. But I'll show one more slide. The others you can look at later. I want to look at what I will call the Kenya's innovation phenomena, but I want to ask, is it? The question of the mobile financial applications in Kenya are now well globalized phenomena, the undersea cables. I'll give a few examples of ICT for education initiatives, but I will concentrate a little bit more on those three case studies for purposes of illustrating innovation. The concept of living labs, open innovation, iHubs, and one case at the University of Nairobi that is supported by the ministry, the Fab Labs, really as an example of a much broader phenomenon. I want to look at the Kenya Education Network. Why is it such an innovative idea? It is not unique to Kenya. I want to look at, and I'll introduce you perhaps to the very first African technology city that we are developing in Kenya, the Konsa Technopolis, just outside Nairobi. And I'll conclude, and Madam Minister from South Africa, you talked about the SKA, the African Square Kilometre Array Project, which is led by South Africa, and Kenya is very privileged to be part of that process. This is the Knowledge Economy Index. The red shows danger, and Africa is in danger. This is Earth seen from space at night, NASA pictures. You can see most of the other world is quite well lit. And this is the same story given by the Vice Chancellor of the Western Cape University. This is collaborations in innovation networks around the world. You can see the activity between North America and Europe, and to some smaller extent, Latin America and obviously East Asia, very limited in Africa. Is Africa on the edge? You saw that picture and many more yesterday, so I don't need to waste a lot with respect to that. Clearly, we lack appreciable or anything worth talking about in terms of indigenous science and technology, let alone ICT. We really generate very little in terms of new knowledge. We have limited capacity to even exploit incredible knowledge, global knowledge, largely factor-driven economies, but I think that message is quite clear. But things are starting to change, and this is my story, ladies and gentlemen, slowly but encouragingly. There are, in some aspects, areas in Africa that are starting to become increasingly competitive in specific niches, and I'll be showing some of that in Kenya. We talked of the science or space science in South Africa is no longer that esoteric. It's becoming very important. And this project, the SKA project, is an example. And in our case, Kenya, really innovative things we are starting to see in the areas. But what are the game changers in this process? Those who don't know where Kenya is part of the East Africa. I thought of just showing that. Clearly, policy and strategy is very important. And I think this has been demonstrated since yesterday. If there is no that strategic foundation, then you won't go very far. We therefore, almost 10 years ago, started thinking on a much longer term. Again, this is not unique, the Vision 2030. And that was the, shall I say the caption, a globally competitive and prosperous nation with a high quality of life by 2030. That is what we intend to achieve. It is starting to happen in some areas. The challenges are there, definitely. The pillars were economic, social, political. And that's the sort of thing we captured this story of the Vision 2030. An overarching vision is there. The economic statements are there, the social statement, the political statements. Our new constitution is no longer new, 2010, is again as the background of this 2030 thinking. I'm informed after South Africa, or perhaps even before South Africa, is one of the most revolutionary documents for providing the contract between citizens and their leaders. Science, technology, innovation is extremely important, and in the context of that vision, that's how we state it. In this regard, consider ICT as part of this technology, a nation that harnesses science, technology, innovation to foster national prosperity, global competitiveness. Clearly, national growth, but you must compete globally. No country can avoid that today. Again, that is just for your noting, and just to say, in this case, the Vision 2030 clearly recognizes the importance of science and technology. But these new policy strategies will beget new institutions, new legislations. That is just supposed to show that. What is clearly important is the perception of a new national innovation system, captured by very many parameters. Some of them, obviously, capabilities and capacities of our institutions. That is at the center of what we are doing in the country. Ensuring the whole, shall I say, national science innovation infrastructure is well supported, is well organized. And I'm just giving examples here of some of the new national innovation institutions, like the new Commission for Science, Technology, Innovation, the National Research Foundation, the National Innovation Agency. Those ones, at least the last two, will be in place by the end of this year. Complementing the whole business of technology, science, and ICT is obviously education training. It's so important because it wouldn't be without it. And that slide just gives an indication within the basic education and training, within the universities, within the tertiary or technical vocational education, the changes that are starting to take place. The collaboration and partnership between all actors, the public and the private, like PPP is fundamental. The so-called triple helix is really what, in our view, is extremely important. That just shows the interactiveness of this new innovation system. That's even more complicated in a little more detail, the same thing. Just an example of since about 3 years ago, we set up a National Science and Innovation Fund, just to scout around any new idea and start supporting it. And this idea is not only in our research institutions, our universities, but any Kenyan who is outside there and has an idea. The motivation was really Bill Gates. And all of you know the story of Bill Gates. It is within this fund we have also established a bilateral collaboration with a number of other countries, joint innovation fund. I'm really pleased to mention South Africa, Kenya-South Africa Joint Research and Innovation Fund, where citizens from the two countries competitively apply for this fund. I invited Namibia to join this yesterday. This just shows a young boy who had done incredible innovation, being awarded by the president of the country Some of you attended the first African Science Technology Innovation Forum earlier in the year. This is when it took place. That young man said his life changed for good by shaking the hand of the president as a young innovator. ICT policy is fundamental as part of science technology innovation. Just basically giving you some of the indications, what it says there. The other major game changer was really the coming of the undersea cables in Kenya. To a great extent, the eastern part of Africa was the last to join, shall I say, this game. But now we have 4 undersea or marine optic cables feeding through Mombasa. And remember, Kenya feeds not only itself, but the entire Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan are all part of that infrastructure. And we really are very happy to work with our brothers. Just this is 2004. You recall, nothing was actually on the East African coast. This is 2011, and you can see it's changing. And that's the picture of Africa, exactly where the cables enter Mombasa. And this is the total nation and the national optical fiber backbone infrastructure. And literally, it is capturing the total country. And you can see it is then extending to South Sudan. It is extending to Uganda, because those countries really must rely on the coastal countries like us. The other one, as I said, is the mobile financial application. The M-Pesa is the most famous, but now we probably have about 10 such applications by the local banks working with ICT companies. And some of them are air money, Pesa. By the way, Pesa just means money, is a Swahili word. M is mobile money, M-Pesa. And it's now a global phenomena, as it were. And really, it is changing the game way financing and banking must work in Kenya, and by the same token, in Africa, if not to say the developing world. These innovations, and M-Pesa, as I said, is just an example, are really attracting a lot of attention, and therefore you're getting the major ICT players also setting up their labs, research labs in Kenya on behalf of Africa. The latest one is IBM African Research Lab, which was set up very recently. You have the Google Research Lab, and so forth. In terms of then the education initiatives, just a few examples. I believe I have only 10, 15 minutes in total. These are just examples of initiatives to support ICT, to support education that have been in Kenya. As I said, I'll highlight 2 or so a little later. The Computer for Schools initiative, again, this is a partnership between the government and literally every stakeholder, our development partners, the private sector, the NGOs, the civil society, for sourcing and placing support to our institutions. The school broadcasting has been in Kenya for a long time. Development of learning content, we think this is extremely important. In Africa, we must not only rely on other people's content, we have a duty to develop that content. Similarly, e-learning platforms, so expensive. And we challenged our University of Nairobi to develop e-learning platforms for purposes of open and distance education in Kenya, and I'm happy to say that has been done. The NEPAD e-schools initiative, this is an African-wide project, so it's not exceptional to Kenya. Internet cafes by Telcom, that's one of the largest ICT companies, largely public supported. Free software licenses, especially from Microsoft, agreements that were entered between Kenya, and we really do appreciate that support. Education management information system has been in Kenya for quite some time. It is continuously going through improvements. The relevant institutions are extremely important. In the case of ICT, we have an ICT board that on behalf of the government has a major responsibility. We have a Kenya ICT Trust Fund. I sit as a trustee in that particular fund. Again, this is a consortium of not only the government, but other many stakeholders. And what I will talk in a little moment is the Kenya Education Network. What are these living labs, and why do I think, and why did I in my speech want to highlight this? Clearly, this is part of the open innovation phenomena, not just in Kenya, it's around the world. And I think it's starting to happen in a lot of places in the developing world. This open innovation environment. Their strength is co-creation, exploration, experimentation, evaluation. That's how new ideas tend to come. And you remember really the famous ICT centers in the USA, that was their origins. So again, as this background, we as a government, certainly in my ministry, we decided to support such an initiative at the University of Nairobi, which was between initially University of Nairobi and MIT labs. And again, they brought largely students to co-create and think together. And that has been a very interesting experience. There you are, that was taken not a long time ago, just to see the sort of environment where students and other, even Kenyans who haven't been to university, come to join this endeavor. And we are very clear, in those sort of open environments, everybody is welcome, so long as they have an idea to give. This is happening again at the university. And again, I'm just using that as an example. There are many universities that are undertaking that. These are just examples of startups that have come from that particular Fab Lab in the University of Nairobi. Something very interesting, you see the picture there, I don't know how I can show it, called the Pima SEMA device. That device is an electronic citizen survey device. If, as a ministry, you want to carry out a survey of whatever nature, you just need to use that device. Again, it's really Kenyan, it's now been patented with the support of our ministry, and that particular student who did that under this Fab Lab. The government had decided every ministry should buy that particular element, and this is part of supporting local innovativeness. Just using that as an example, these are many examples, really. Kenneth, like a lot of other RANs, educational networks around the world, Kenya decided to establish this. I must say I was a founder member of Kenneth at the University of Nairobi, where I spent most of my previous life. And it was to support the total higher education system, the research education system, including the middle level institutions, for purposes of cheaper access to the internet, exchange of research and related things. That is the way it is covered, just in a pictorial manner, all over Kenya. Every university, public, private, is covered by this particular network, right from the coast across the country. You can see, again, unfortunately, most of the North Kenya is still lacking, being really, strictly speaking, taking advantage of the development in Kenya. That's a challenge we have as Kenyans in dealing with that side. I just wanted to show you how, if I can get all that together, sorry. Before I get to that, 2 minutes, thank you. I'll be through within 2 minutes. I'll leave Kenneth, I'll provide you with that. Let me go to the Concert Technology City. This is an idea that within the Vision 2030, we were very clear in context of globalization and using technology as a basis to support that. Technology cities are very important, where among other things, you have ICT, business process outsourcing, you have science technology parks, and so forth. So a 500-acre farm was bought by the government to start this city, is now completely being planned. And this is the thinking of that city. It will be launched hopefully in the course of next month. And the response has been incredible from right around the world who wants to come and participate in it, including universities, especially very innovative universities within ICT. To us, this is going to be a very important center to co-create, shall I say, to collaborate. And in that connection, everybody is welcome in this game changer, ladies and gentlemen. Which is, finally, Africa is really working together. This is one of the best examples, and participating at the cutting edge of science and technology. And this is really the SKA project. And South Africa initially would have done it alone, but they took the decision, which I thought was a wise decision, to involve the rest of Africa. Not really everybody in Africa. It is really largely the South African countries, if I can just show you them, largely the South African countries, the red dots, with the middle there green as really the focus. You can see above the Southern Africa is both Kenya and Ghana. It is our hope the rest of Africa must be part of this. South Africa and the Total African Initiative won the competition towards the end against Australia and to some extent New Zealand, but the decision has been taken. Let's not throw them away. Let both Australia and New Zealand be part of the project forwards. It is a project which the minister talked about earlier. It's really going to be a game changer in the forward and backward linkages in terms of sciences, not just space science, the training that is going to be required. These are the words of the minister then. She has been transferred. Developing large-scale astronomy facilities such as the SKM can become a powerful driver of scientific, socio-economic, and human capital development throughout the continent of Africa, obviously for the benefit of Africa and the rest of the world, remembering that really the rest of the world started in Africa. That's a cartoon in Africa, not a cartoon of one of those animals, a kangaroo in Australia, and that Kenyan, or indeed a South African greeting. Ladies and gentlemen, my final slide is the really innovativeness of these little creatures. And if they can do this, what about us? I thank you.